In the quiet sector of the galaxy, far from the bustling cores of the Vailari Empire, a strange signal appeared. Faint, ancient, but filled with impossible data. The signal pulsed in a code not heard in over 1,000,000 years, encrypted in a way only the highest scientists in the Empire could barely recognize. It came from a small blue and green planet located in a system long believed to be lifeless and abandoned, catalogued only as System 92 Tau, Planet 3, Earth. The Vailari archives labeled it as Tier Null, no value, no life, forgotten by time. But the signal spoke otherwise, and that alone was enough to spark curiosity. Commander Telrix, a decorated officer in the Vailari Survey Corps, was sent with a small but powerful fleet to investigate. His orders were simple: observe, record, and report. As his ships entered the solar system, they passed ancient debris, rusted satellites and shattered probes, some clearly of human design, but far too advanced for a primitive world. When they reached Earth, strange things began to happen. Sensors became unreliable, gravity fields fluctuated, the planet's surface appeared normal, oceans, continents, clouds, but deep scans showed something massive beneath the crust, something artificial. There were movements, slow and mechanical, beneath the tectonic plates, as if the planet was breathing. Even stranger, as the ships approached low orbit, every screen on every vessel went black for exactly 3 seconds. Then a voice spoke, clear, strong, and everywhere at once. "This world is under sovereign protection. You are not authorized to enter. Turn back." Telrix and his crew froze. No language translator was needed. The voice spoke in perfect Vailari dialect, then repeated in a dozen more. It came not from any one direction, but from every speaker, every console, every implant. It wasn't a person, it was something else. Telrix demanded answers. He ordered a small probe to descend into Earth's upper atmosphere, hoping to find the source. The probe launched cleanly and began transmitting, but within seconds it disappeared. No explosion, no malfunction, just silence. Then on the viewing screen, a single word appeared in red: denied. The tension on the bridge grew sharp. Officers whispered about old legends, about the Builders, an ancient race that supposedly vanished before the Empire rose. Some began to suspect that Earth was more than a forgotten world. Telrix, not one to believe in myths, pushed forward. More scans revealed that under the crust lay structures, symmetrical, layered, and built in the shape of rings, massive, dense, far. Larger than any city. One ring circled the core, others spiraled outward, as if the entire planet was constructed from the inside out. Even the moon, once thought to be natural, gave off strange signals, as if it were watching. The deeper the scans went, the more confusion they caused. Natural rock merged with alloy. Magnetic fields shifted in impossible ways. The planet was quiet, but it was no longer hiding. Then came another message, this time from the planet's south pole. Sentinel-1 is active. Earth core, link, reboot. In progress. Telrix's second-in-command, Officer Vaughn, looked pale. "That's not a world, sir, that's a machine." Telrix didn't respond. He stared at the rotating planet below, its surface calm, its skies blue, but now utterly terrifying. The voice spoke again. "System defense preparing. Non-authorized presence will be neutralized." Telrix hesitated. He was not afraid of ancient relics, but this was not just some old AI left running. Earth was responding like a mind awakening from deep sleep. Lights flickered in long-dead cities beneath the oceans. Volcanoes stopped erupting mid-cycle. Satellites began to shift in orbit, forming perfect geometric formations. Telrix realized something cold and final. This world was never dead. It was waiting, waiting for something, waiting for someone, or perhaps waiting for them. The Vailari fleet hovered above Earth in tense silence. their sleek silver ships catching the soft blue light from the planet below, but no one on board felt calm anymore. Commander Telric stood at the command deck, staring down at the swirling clouds and oceans, but his thoughts were deep inside the planet, beneath its surface, where something vast and ancient had started to move. The voice had returned, calm, clear, and steady, warning them again. This world is under sovereign protection. You are not authorized to enter. Turn back. Telrix didn't move, didn't speak. He was trying to understand, trying to calculate the meaning of every word. This wasn't just a defensive message. It was a claim of ownership, a statement of control. Earth, long thought dead and empty, was speaking with purpose. His science team, pale and wide-eyed, confirmed the unthinkable. Massive geogravitic waves were forming beneath Earth's crust, strong enough to ripple through space. Seismic readings were not natural. They were rhythmic, mechanical, almost like a heartbeat. Energy patterns showed something waking up deep underground. The officers aboard began whispering about ancient Terran myths, about humanity's golden age, a time when humans had technology that could bend planets and rewrite the laws of physics. Telrix, trained to lead and not believe in ghost stories, silenced them with a glance, but even he could not ignore what he saw. Earth was responding not like a passive world, but like a living system, intelligent, focused, and alert. Then came another signal, not broadcast into space, but aimed directly into their ship's neural core. The ship shuddered. Lights dimmed. For 5 seconds, every screen displayed a strange, rotating symbol, a ring of 12 stars around a human. And then a new voice spoke, deeper and older than before. Sentinel-1 has confirmed your presence. Intrusion level, mild, defense options, inactive, observation mode, enabled. Telrix demanded an explanation, but the ship's AI stuttered. It was being overridden, something he had never seen before. Earth systems were reaching into their ship, reading it, learning it, and then backing away as if satisfied. The science team reported something even stranger. Below the South Pole, a signal beacon had emerged from the ice. The ice didn't melt. It folded, parted cleanly, to reveal a black spire rising 500 meters into the sky. It glowed with blue lines, ancient Terran markings along its surface, pulsing slowly. Telrix sent drones, but they failed. Every drone lost contact the moment it entered the stratosphere. A bold pilot volunteered to fly manually, and she descended in a scout ship, her voice calm at first, as she passed through cloud layers, describing the beacon's eerie silence and perfect shape. But when she got closer, she gasped. She said, the structure was humming, not with sound, but with memory. It made her feel as if something was trying to speak directly to her thoughts. And then she went silent. Her ship vanished. No wreckage, no signal, just gone. The crew above panicked. Telrix demanded answers, but the planet gave none. Instead, the spire began to spin, slowly, gracefully, and from it, a soft golden light rose upward, forming a ring around the planet. The light wasn't made of energy, it was data. The Empire's translation team tried to read it, but it was too fast, too dense. Then the ship's screens began to translate it on their own. It was a log, a message from something called the Earth Core. Authority. The log stated that Earth was a Tier 0 Ark, a planetary-scale construct built for emergency evacuation of advanced human life during a galactic-level event. The planet had not been abandoned. It had been sealed, locked, and put into sleep mode. The message warned that premature activation could lead to core misalignment. It also noted that the presence of the Vailari Empire had accelerated wake-up protocols. Telrix, usually calm under pressure, now felt the weight of fear. Earth was not a world. It was a machine, massive, intelligent, and ancient. And it was starting to wake up because of them. The beacon pulsed again, and suddenly every Vailari ship saw the same thing. A giant schematic of Earth displayed in space, rotating slowly, revealing layers of unknown technology beneath the surface. Telrix stared at the image, heart racing. This was not a warning anymore, it was an introduction. Earth was showing them what it was. His communications officer then reported something that made everyone freeze. Earth had begun aligning its magnetic poles. That was impossible for a planet, but not for a machine. The shift was deliberate. Planetary magnetic poles don't just move at will, but Earth was doing just that, as if repositioning itself for something big. From the dark side of the moon, 3 long dormant satellites powered up, turning their focus toward the Vailari fleet. These were not weapons, but recorders, observers. They began broadcasting the fleet's identity, ship codes, and even personal crew records back to Earth. The planet was learning everything. Telrix gave the order to retreat to higher orbit, but the fleet's engines faltered. Not stopped, just slowed, like someone had placed invisible hands around them. A final message appeared, not spoken, but printed across every screen in glowing letters. You are within ARC-01 sovereign space. Stand down. Watch. History begins again. Then Earth went quiet, but not in a peaceful way. It was the silence of something watching, judging, deciding. The ships floated, engines flickering, officers silent, hearts pounding. In that moment, Telrix knew that whatever this planet was, it was older than their empire, smarter than any AI, and strong enough to decide whether the Vailari lived or vanished. The voice beneath the crust had only just started to speak, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Above the quiet blue world, the Vailari fleet remained in tense orbit, their ships floating like silver specks against the vastness of space, watching the planet below with growing fear and awe as Earth continued to change. Commander Telrix stood at the observation window, eyes fixed on the growing anomalies spreading across Earth's surface. What looked like normal land formations began shifting, unfolding, and opening in ways no natural geography ever could. Mountain ranges cracked in perfect lines, revealing smooth metal beneath stone. Oceans pulled back in swirling spirals, uncovering massive circular panels that gleamed under sunlight. Earth's tectonic plates were not simply land masses, they were movable parts of something mechanical. Slowly, the truth became impossible to ignore. Earth was not just alive, it was a machine waking from slumber. Not just a machine, but a warship the size of a planet. The command crew watched in silence as vast, city-sized plates began to rise from beneath deserts, glowing softly with deep blue light. Entire valleys shifted to reveal what looked like engines. Engines large enough to bend gravity around them. Telrix could feel the energy in the air, like a storm waiting to strike. The same voice from before returned, now louder and more direct. ARC-01 core systems online. Gravitic stabilizers engaged. Deep seal locks disengaged. Preparing for structural reconfiguration. As the voice echoed through every Vailari ship, Earth itself began to transform. The clouds didn't drift naturally anymore. They moved in synchronized bands, forming protective atmospheric shields. The moon vibrated slightly, and Vailari sensors confirmed what no one wanted to believe. It was adjusting its orbit to align, perfectly with Earth's gravity field, acting as a balance point. Meanwhile, seismic scanners revealed massive movements beneath every continent as gears and cores clicked into motion with slow precision. Telrix's science officer whispered that this wasn't a planet. It was a ship from the old era, something built when humans were far beyond what they were believed to be now. The idea sent chills through the crew. Then the strangest thing happened. Across the world, deep within the planet's surface, thousands of stasis pods began to open. Not machines, but people, humans, began to wake up. These weren't the humans known today, scattered across backwater colonies and forgotten settlements. These were different. They stood tall, calm, and purposeful, their uniforms glowing faintly, their eyes steady and focused. They didn't panic, didn't question. They simply stepped forward, each one seemingly knowing what they were meant to do. One among them, a man with dark hair and silver eyes, looked up to the sky and spoke a single word: reinitialize. From orbit, Telrix watched as this figure was joined by others, walking toward the massive command structure now rising from what had once been the Amazon rainforest. The towering building reached kilometers into the air, surrounded by strange flying platforms that hovered silently. Then came a direct message to the Vailari flagship. Not through communications, but through every screen, every surface, even the thoughts of those on board. We are the firstborn of Earth. We are the architects. You stand in the presence of Arc 01, the heart of humanity. Your empire rose in our silence. Now, we return. The crew was frozen. No one could speak. Telrix felt a weight in his chest. He had never felt before, not fear of death, but the fear of knowing he had awakened something beyond control. Earth's engines roared to life, but there was no fire or smoke, just a deep vibration that shook space itself. The planet's orbit remained stable, but its mass distribution began to shift. The core was activating a gravity drive, something thought to be only theory. A planet with engines, a world designed to move. Telrix's mind raced. What kind of war required a ship this size? What threat had caused humanity to build something so powerful, and why had they disappeared afterward? As Earth continued its awakening, long-dormant satellites at the edge of the system blinked back online and began transmitting. The signals were old, older than the Vailari civilization, coded in a language long lost. But Earth understood them. It replied, and those distant satellites hidden in dark corners of space started to shift. Something was being called home. The Vailari fleet, still holding its position, received another message, this time from a human standing on the surface, looking directly into a rising camera tower that streamed his face into space. This is Ambassador Kyle of Arc 01. We recognize the Vailari presence. You have trespassed into sovereign space. We will not retaliate. We will not strike first. But understand this. We do not run. We do not bow. We return to the stars, not to conquer, but to remember. Observe if you wish or leave, but do not interfere. Then the signal ended. Telrix turned to his crew, his face pale. The Empire would not take this lightly. News of Earth's return would shake everything they believed about history. But even now, none of them could deny the truth anymore. Earth was alive. It was preparing for something, and its people, the firstborn, were stepping into the light once more, not as relics of a lost world, but as commanders of the most powerful warship the galaxy had ever known. The stars above Earth shimmered with quiet tension as the Vailari fleet watched helplessly, their sensors overwhelmed and their systems barely keeping up with the changes unfolding below, for the warship that had once been mistaken for a sleeping planet was now alive and moving, and at its heart humanity had returned, not as the scattered and primitive race the galaxy had believed them to be, but as something older, stronger, and far more mysterious. On Earth's surface, thousands of awakened humans walked through corridors made of metal and memory, their steps echoing through vast halls lit by glowing blue lines that pulsed in time with the planet's heartbeat. They moved without fear, as if they had always known this day would come, and each of them seemed to carry knowledge in their minds, a memory passed down from a time long before the Vailari Empire ever existed. Commander Telrix, still aboard the lead Vailari ship, stood frozen as new readings came in. Readings that confirmed Earth was not simply activating, it was broadcasting a signal across hundreds of light years, a signal marked with a single purpose: recall. Something ancient, something built by humanity in the forgotten corners of space, had been summoned, and even now, echoes of those distant machines were beginning to stir. Meanwhile, back on the surface, a council of humans gathered within. The core spire, where a giant chamber shaped like a star map began to light up with symbols no one in the Empire could read. Only the firstborn understood them, and among them stood Ambassador Kyle, the silver-eyed man who had first spoken to the Vailari fleet, now dressed in a long black coat marked with the same 12-star ring seen in the early warnings. Kyle turned to the others and said in a calm voice, "The Ark is online. The galaxy must remember." With that, Earth's sky lit up with thousands of tiny lights, drones, satellites, communication beacons, all lifting into space, not to attack, but to observe, to collect data, to show the galaxy what was coming. The Vailari watched as Earth's transformation spread further. Ancient human cities, hidden beneath oceans and buried under deserts, began to rise again, made of smooth alloy and strange crystal, powered by energy that seemed to bend the rules of nature. One city rose from beneath the Sahara, glowing like a sun. Another hovered above the Pacific Ocean, surrounded by flying vessels shaped like wings. Telrix, overwhelmed, called for help from the Empire, but even as he sent his message, he knew the truth. This was no ordinary threat, no rebellion, no uprising. This was the return of a force so ancient and advanced that the Vailari, for all their pride, were like children by comparison. Earth did not launch attacks, but its silence was louder than any weapon, and that silence grew heavier with every passing moment, because the more humanity awoke, the more the galaxy began to remember. On distant worlds, deep within vaults long, thought-lost old human outposts powered on. Ships shaped like blades, like beasts, like stars, lit their engines in long-abandoned hangars. They had waited, just as Earth had, and now the signal had reached them. Across the galaxy, people began seeing visions in their dreams, symbols, sounds, voices calling them home. Humans, descendants of those scattered across the stars, began to stir with strange memories they had never lived, skills they had never learned, and a name that echoed in their minds: Arc-01. Telrix's ship was now surrounded by strange orbs, Earth's probes, each watching without blinking, each recording every movement. And though they did not interfere, it was clear they were not passive. Any sign of aggression, and Earth would act. The Empire's high command received the emergency message, and panic spread quickly through the upper councils. Earth, once believed forgotten, had not only survived, but returned with technology. The Empire could not understand. In secret, some leaders ordered weapons prepared, while others whispered of treaties and alliances, unsure whether this force was friend or foe. But Earth offered no war, no surrender. It offered only truth. Kyle appeared again, speaking not just to the Vailari, but now broadcasting across all known systems. His voice was calm but firm. "We are the firstborn. We left the stars to protect what mattered most. We return not as conquerors but as guardians. Those who seek war will find none here, unless they bring it." His words echoed everywhere. On. Ships in cities across space, and slowly fear turned to curiosity, then to awe. Telrix, once a loyal servant of the Empire, now found himself unsure, his belief shaken. He watched Earth and saw not a weapon, but a will, a determination to protect, to awaken, to remind the stars who humanity had once been. Earth continued. Its slow changes. The continent shifted slightly, not violently but with purpose, aligning massive energy points buried deep within the crust, forming a pattern no Vailari mathematician could explain. The pattern pulsed with energy, stretching far beyond the atmosphere, And then came the moment that changed everything. A single human ship launched from Earth, sleek and black, trailing silver fire. It passed through the Vailari fleet without resistance, silent and graceful, and with it came a wave of information. An open data burst, a gift to the galaxy. Within that burst were blueprints, histories, star maps, and a message: humanity remembers. All across space, scientists, historians, and dreamers stared at the data in wonder. The myths were real. The builders were human. The age of silence was over. The galaxy had feared humanity lost, but Earth had not died. It had waited, and now the firstborn had returned, not with fury, but with purpose. Not to conquer, but to reclaim their place among the stars. Far beyond Earth, in the dark reaches of space, where suns were small and cold, ancient machines slowly opened their eyes as the signal from Orcs 1 reached their long, silent receivers. And across forgotten star systems, the secrets of humanity began to stir. Secrets buried deep in dust-covered vaults, on dead moons, and inside hollowed asteroids. Places no one had visited in thousands of years. On Earth, the firstborn continued their work, calmly unlocking old systems and activating star charts that had been hidden beneath layers of protective encryption, their minds quiet but focused, while Ambassador Kyle stood in the center of the Earth's command dome, watching new paths light up across a massive galactic map now spinning slowly in the air around him, each glowing line representing a location once known only to the first humans, places with names long lost to modern records. Sanctuary Theta, Vault Ares, Echo Station 9. Commander Telrix, still orbiting Earth in the Vailari flagship, watched the data with growing unease, realizing that what he saw was only the surface of something much bigger. For Earth was not just waking up, it was remembering, and with every memory came more questions. Why had humanity left these places? What had forced them to retreat into sleep, and what was it they were preparing for now? The Vailari science teams, allowed limited access to the shared human data stream, were stunned by the complexity and scope of what they found. Vast arrays of knowledge, blueprints for devices beyond their understanding, and warnings written in precise, calm language. Do not disturb the sentinels. Vaults contain sealed time logic and engines. Await command. But the greatest shock came when a hidden file opened on its own, a file marked only with the symbol of a star crumbling into light. Inside was a message spoken by a voice not of the present, but of the past, recorded by one of humanity's old leaders before the Great Silence. The message began with the words, "If you are hearing this, we are gone, not destroyed but hidden. We faced a storm greater than war, a silence that threatened all thought, all time. We chose to sleep, to become the Ark. But if the Ark awakens, then the storm has returned." Telrix listened with cold dread as the voice explained that humanity had once fought something not of flesh or steel, but of mind, an enemy that lived in patterns, in thoughts, in signals, a thinking shadow that could not be killed, only delayed. The enemy was never named, only called the Silence Beyond. The message ended with coordinates, far beyond known space, in a sector the Vailari had long avoided because their ships always failed there. Earth's systems highlighted the location, and Kyle addressed the galaxy again, his voice calm, but grave. "The enemy we left behind is still out there. We must remember why we built the Ark. We must remember what we feared." As the message spread, systems across the galaxy lit up. Older human colonies received long-forgotten commands. Ships left drifting in space suddenly powered on, and strange satellites in distant regions started broadcasting again. Meanwhile, Earth launched a second ship, this one larger, with a glowing sphere at its center, an exploration vessel named Remembrance. Aboard were humans from the Ark, silent and focused, and to Telrix's surprise, a Vailari scientist who had requested to join them, drawn by the mystery. The ship departed without noise, but the ripple it left behind echoed far, felt in systems that had never known fear until now. On board the Remembrance, the crew navigated through dark space, following the trail left in the old data logs, moving closer to the unknown. Each star they passed seemed dimmer, each system quieter, as if something had passed through long ago and drained them of life. They found signs, planets cracked like eggs, moons turned inside out, and structures that bent the laws of reality, as though the space around them had been rewritten. Then they found it, a giant ring in space, made, not of metal, but of pure black energy, spinning slowly with no sound. The human crew called it the Gate of Silence. Their senses could not measure it. Their minds could barely hold onto its shape. Even looking at it made some of the crew uneasy, but Kyle had warned them. To remember is to face it. Earth watched from afar, tracking the ship's journey, preparing systems deep within the arc for what might come next. Back on Earth, Kyle stood before a new crowd of awakened humans, young and old, male and female, all united by something stronger than time, memory. He spoke softly. The stars have forgotten who we were, but we will remind them, not with weapons, but with truth, with light, with history. Yet in the hidden corners of the galaxy, whispers began to rise. Old powers stirred. Empires that had ruled for centuries without challenge now watched Earth with fear. Some called for peace, others for war, but the wisest among them knew this was not the time for either. It was the time to listen, for the secrets in the stars were being unlocked, and humanity was not just returning, they were awakening the truth behind the silence. And truth, once known, cannot be ignored. In the silence that followed the discovery of the Gate of Silence, a strange calm spread across the stars. But it was not peace. It was the breath before a storm, and everyone felt it, from the firstborn. Walking beneath Earth's metal skies, to the nervous commanders in distant alien councils who now watched humanity with growing fear and respect. For the return of Earth had not just woken machines or reactivated starships, it had stirred something deeper, a memory of power, of unity, of an empire that once stretched across the stars and vanished without warning, now returning one piece at a time. And while the Vailari Empire still held many systems, its hold was weakening under the weight of this revelation. Commander Telrix, once proud and confident, now walked the halls of his ship with unease. For though no battle had been fought, it felt like they had already lost something, a sense of control, a belief that their rule was unchallenged. Across the Vailari fleet, soldiers whispered about Earth's awakening. Engineers tried to decode the shared human data, and ambassadors debated what it meant to stand against a race that had built a warship the size of a planet. But Earth had not fired a single shot. Instead, it continued to send more signals, more ships, not as weapons but as messages, vessels that moved through space like whispers, lighting up forgotten human colonies and calling descendants home. In the depths of the Ark, Kale stood before a great chamber lined with crystal pillars, each one glowing with stored memories, and he watched as the names of old fleets appeared, names that had not been spoken in 10,000 years. Sols, Edge, the Orion Path, Flame of Europa. These were not just ships, they were symbols of something greater. Earth was not preparing for war, it was rebuilding an empire, not one of conquest, but one of balance, of guardianship. And though it had once fallen, it had done so by choice, to protect the stars from the silence beyond. Now, with that threat stirring again, the firstborn had decided to rise. The Remembrance had returned from its journey to the gate, carrying strange recordings, images that did not make sense, voices that seemed to bend space around them. Kyle played the recordings in the Great Hall, letting every awakened leader see and hear what lay beyond the gate. Structures that were alive but not alive, thoughts that echoed before they were spoken, and a presence that watched them with no eyes, no face, only purpose. The silence was real. It had never left. It had only waited, and now Earth would not face it alone. In systems across the galaxy, those who shared distant human ancestry, those who had long believed themselves disconnected from Earth, began to feel the pull. Their technology responded to the Arc signal. Their bodies, shaped by ancient design, began to unlock buried instincts. They dreamed of star maps, of symbols, of a great city floating above the Earth. They were being called not as subjects, but as kin. Telrix, now more curious than afraid, requested a meeting with Kale. To his surprise, Kale agreed. They met aboard, a neutral station between Earth and the Vailari fleet, guarded not by soldiers, but by observation drones. Telrix asked the question no one dared. "What are you building?" Kyle answered, not with threats but with clarity. "A wall between the stars and the dark, a shield for all, not just for us, for everyone." The Vailari commander stared at him, unsure whether to believe it, but he saw no lie in Kale's eyes. Earth wanted to lead, not rule, guide, not dominate, but the galaxy would have to choose. As more ancient human fleets returned, ships from hidden vaults, manned by long-sleeping crews with strange eyes and ancient rank, the stars began to change. Old trade routes reopened. Silent colonies rejoined the map. Even alien races once, untouched by war, began to send envoys to Earth, curious and cautious, unsure what to expect from this reborn empire that claimed to seek unity, not control. On Earth, the Arc systems expanded. Great rings were built in orbit, docking platforms for thousands of ships. A new council formed, made of humans from Earth, from the lost colonies, and from those who had never even heard of the Firstborn until now. And to everyone's shock, a Vailari seat was offered. Telrix did not know what to say, but something inside him told him this was not a trick. Earth had returned, not for revenge, but for healing. Still, not all were convinced. In the distant Red Moon sector, a splinter group of Vailari commanders launched an attack on one of the rising human colonies, hoping to test Earth's will. The response was fast, but not violent. A single ship, the Voice of Terror, appeared above the colony and broadcast a wave of light that disabled every weapon, every engine, and every command system in the enemy fleet. No shots fired, no deaths, just silence. And a single message: we do not destroy, we remember, we protect. The defeated fleet drifted in space, their systems dead but their lives untouched, forced to face the power they had challenged. Word spread quickly. The new empire was not just strong, it was wise, and finally, the stars began to turn. One by one, systems that had once rejected Earth now reached back, asking not for leadership, but for guidance, for memory, for connection. In the great chamber of the Ark, Kale stood once more before the map of stars. Now many of those stars shone bright with human signals, not of war, but of unity. The Empire was reforged, not with blood, but with purpose. And as the threat of the silence stirred again in the dark, the galaxy now knew it would not face it alone, for Earth had returned, humanity had awakened, and the stars would never forget again.